on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 7th of May 2024. Extended fund. Sri Lanka expects IMF board approval for the next tranche of bailout in June.
We are hoping that most probably in the month of June we will be able to get the board approved.
Central Bank chief says Sri Lanka's reserves have improved, allowing intervention where necessary.
The next programs, probably government, several ministries will have a commitment how those are going to be implemented. What are the timelines?
Digital education. The Cabinet of Ministers approves obtaining grants from the government of China for the digital transformation of general education in Sri Lanka. Renewable solutions. Sri Lanka to enter into a 20-year agreement with India's Adani to develop 2 wind power stations. Litro expansion. State-run Litro Gas Lanka to open a new terminal, expanding its filling and storage capacities. Delaying foreclosure. Amendments to the Recovery of Loans by the Bank Special Provisions Act approved in Parliament.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Indivadi Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us for the very latest in developments across Sri Lanka and around the world on your prime time English news service here on Derana 24. Taking you to your top stories tonight. Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe today noted that International Monetary Fund Executive Board approval to release the third tranche of the Extended Fund Facility Programme to Sri Lanka can be received by the end of June. Addressing media today, the governor further said that the country has made great progress in the local and external debt restructuring process. It was also revealed that Sri Lanka expects to enter a long-term debt repayment method with bilateral debtors and international sovereign bondholders in the near future, minimizing the debt repayment burden on the government.
මේ වෙද්දී බහුපාර්ශ්වික ණය ශ්‍රී ලංකාව ගෙවනවා ද්විපාර්ශ්වික ණය ගෙවන්න සැලැස්මක් තියෙනවාද ඉදිරියේදී
දැනට ඒකේ ලොකු ප්‍රගතියක් ලබාගෙන තියෙනවා දේශීය.
There has been great progress in the restructuring of debt. We have finished the local debt restructuring. We have achieved agreements in principle with bilateral debtors, and we hope to finalize the agreements as soon as possible. Discussions with ISB holders are also taking place, and the second round of discussions will start anytime soon. We hope to get into a long-term stable debt repayment method that will not be a major burden on the government.
There has been a lot of discussions about some changes or some revision in the IMF conditions or IMF deal.
The IMF program, I think as we are seeing, then we're going into a second review. Right from the beginning, if you look at the staff level agreement in September 2022 and the next review and the forthcoming review, there has been changes to the program. Changes not in terms of the direction of fiscal consolidation, need for revenue enhancement, and need for the curtailing expenditure, and also need for maintaining a stable inflation, and need to build up reserves, need to maintain financial stability. Those can't be changed under any administration or any future program. But within that, how we are going to achieve those objectives? There could be different ways and means of achieving the same target.
Governor, IMF has released this governance diagnostic report. What are the implications on next successive tranches because of that report?
If you look at the last publication, the commitment of the government was to publish the roadmap of how to address all these deficiencies in governance and corruption audits, how to address those things and what is the roadmap. That has already been published. The next process in the future reviews, they probably governments have already committed, they will be implementing these things, 1 to 15 I think. The next programs, probably government, several ministries will have a commitment how those are going to be implemented. What are the timelines?
Is there a time frame on the third tranche, Governor?
We are hoping that most probably in the month of June we will be able to get the board approved.
ජීවිතේ හැම තැනකදීම ස්මාර්ට් වෙන්න. පොලිය විතරක් ගෙවාගෙන යන්න. CDB Smart Draft.
Sri Lanka expects a surplus in the balance of payments this year as well. Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe said that current policy measures must be continued in order to maintain the stability that has been gained in a short period of time. The governor further said that inflation is expected to remain below 5% in the next 1.5 years, allowing a further reduction in policy rates if inflation remains stable.
A media briefing was convened today under the chairmanship of Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe to speak about the annual economic review and financial statements and operations reports of the Central Bank. Under the new Central Bank Act, 2 new reports will be published instead of an annual report.
We have reached a certain level of stability in economic sustainability due to the policy decisions taken by the government and the central bank. It is important to be aware how to maintain the stability we have reached within a short period of time in the future. It is important that we continue the successful policy decisions in the same direction going forward.
මේ වෙනකොට ජාත්‍යන්තර මුල්‍ය අරමුදලේ තුන්වෙනි ට්‍රාන්ච් එක ඩිලේ වීමත් එක්ක නැවත අපිට මේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති මේ පොළොන පාතය වැඩිවීමක් අපේක්ෂා කරන්න පුළුවන්ද?
ප්‍රතිපත්ති පොළොන මාතය
According to the monetary policy, policy rates will be decided based on the inflation, economic growth and the aggregate demand within the country. Getting the third tranche of the IMF is not considered in that. We hope to keep inflation below 5% in the next 1.5 years. Therefore, we believe current policy rates are sufficient. If inflation remains stable, interest rates will come down further, and if it increases, rates will also go up. The exchange rate is decided on daily demand and supply in the market. We hope to have a surplus in this year as well. Taking the foreign exchange earnings and expenditure into consideration, we don't see a great volatility in exchange rates. Even if it gets volatile, as a policy decision, we will let market decide. We have the ability to intervene if necessary. As said before, our reserves have gone up to $5.4 million US. If needed, we can use some of that to stabilize the market.
The Cabinet has approved a project proposal for the digital transformation of general education in Sri Lanka with the support of the Chinese government. Meanwhile, in another decision, the Cabinet of Ministers gave its approval to prepare a bill for the establishment of a National Teachers' Council. With that, let's take a look at other Cabinet decisions in brief.
The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by the Minister of Education to implement the project for the digital transformation of general education in Sri Lanka, funded by the Chinese government. This decision was taken following a feasibility study conducted in relation to the implementation of the project. The project is set to provide delivering classrooms, receiving classrooms, data center and tables for schools, a studio room and a conference room. In another decision, the Cabinet of Ministers gave the green light for a joint proposal presented by the President and the Minister of Education to instruct the legal draftsman to prepare a bill for the establishment of a National Teachers' Council. The proposal put forward by the Ministry of Education aims to enhance the professionalism and quality of teachers through continuous professional development. This decision was taken based on a preliminary draft prepared following an earlier Cabinet decision. The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the resolution furnished by the Ministry of Health to publish the draft bill that was prepared to amend the medical ordinance in the Government Gazette notification and subsequently presented to Parliament for its approval. During a Cabinet meeting in October last year, the Cabinet approved to formulate a national policy comprised of standards and criteria that should be considered for accepting medical degree courses of internationally recognized universities within Sri Lanka and to implement the recommendations furnished by the committee appointed for amending the medical ordinance to cater contemporary requirements.
Also making news tonight, state-run domestic gas supplier Litro Gas Lanka is slated to inaugurate a new gas terminal containing both filling and storage facilities in the Marbina area in Kaduela. Chairman of Litro, Muditha Piris, indicates that the project was completed entirely with the company's funds and that no external debt was incurred for the construction of the new terminal. Litro Gas currently operates an LPG filling plant in Keravalapitia with a filling capacity of 1,600 metric tons a day. With the addition of the new terminal, the state gas supplier is confident that the domestic gas supply process can be operated at 100% efficiency, even if the Keravalapitia terminal suffers a malfunction.
A new gas filling terminal, which also includes storage facilities costing over 1 billion rupees, will be inaugurated at 9:30 am tomorrow morning in the Mabima area. The Keravalapitia terminal alone is not capable of meeting the country's domestic gas demands. However, from tomorrow onwards, we will be able to maintain an output of around 60,000 cylinders per day. Initially, the Mabima terminal will be in operation during weekends. However, by February or March next year, both the Mabima and Keravalapitia terminals will be in operation simultaneously. In future, even if the Keravalapitia terminal has to be closed for repairs, we will still be able to carry out gas distribution at 100% efficiency with the Mabima terminal alone. It must be noted that no external debt was incurred for the construction of this terminal. The project was entirely completed with the company's own funds.
ඔබතුමාලා මේ විදිහට ආයෝජනය කරලා මේ ව්‍යාපාරය පුරුදු කරනකොට විපක්ෂය චෝදනා කරනවා මේක මේ විකුණන්න යනවා කියලා. මම හිතනවා ඔය කියන කාරණේට ඍජුවම
We have no direct involvement in the restructuring of the company. A separate committee has been established to oversee this process, and this is a question that should be put to them.
නෑ කියන එක තමයි විශේෂයෙන් මතක් කරන්නේ.
Sri Lanka will enter a 20-year power purchase agreement with Adani Green Energy of India for the development of 2 wind power stations in Mannar and Punareen. The wind power stations are expected to add an estimated 484 megawatts to the national power grid. According to the agreement, Adani Green will receive $8.28 per kilowatt hour, which will be paid in Sri Lankan rupees under the exchange rate at the time of payment. According to the Minister of Power and Energy, Kanchana Vijayasekara, at the current exchange rate, the cost of a kilowatt hour will be 24 rupees and 78 cents, which is lower than Sri Lanka's average cost of energy at present. The average cost for energy in Sri Lanka stands at 39 rupees and 2 cents per kilowatt hour currently. The project had received the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers. The amendment to the Recovery of Loans by the Bank Special Provisions Act, which aimed to suspend the procedure to acquire properties of debtors of banks, also known as parity law, was approved by Parliament. However, the 7 additional amendments to the same act proposed by opposition leader Sajith Premadasa failed to advance past the committee stage.
Amendment to the Recovery of Loans by Banks Special Provisions Act, which contained legal provisions for the suspension of the procedure to acquire properties of debtors of banks, also known as the Parate Law, until December 15, 2024 was taken for voting at Parliament. 7 additional amendments to the same act were proposed by the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa. During the voting at the committee stage, the opposition leader's amendments were defeated by a majority of 25 votes, which resulted in the act being passed with only the original amendment.
කුඩා හා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණයේ කර්මාන්තකරුවන් පිළිබඳව 2020 පෙබරවාරි 20 වෙනිදා ඉඳලා මම 18 වතාවක් කතා කරා.
From the 20th of February 2020, I have spoken 18 times about micro, small and medium scale enterprises. Through those speeches, I was able to garner the support of even those who initially opposed us. Today, we are submitting 7 amendments. It is essential that the act is passed with those amendments. Then it will be complete.
ඒක එතකොට complete. රජය අද පරාටේ බලතල తాවකාලික ඉවත් කරනවා.
The government is temporarily suspending the execution of the Parate Law starting today. What the opposition is attempting to do by submitting these unnecessary amendments is to show that if they were in power, they would have provided even more subsidies. This is what they have always done. I do not expect anything more from them.
However, government and opposition came to an agreement that the tender calling procedure will be followed for renewable energy projects with a capacity between 10 and 100 megawatts, and the parliamentary approval will be required for projects with a capacity of over 100 megawatts. Despite this, the Minister of Power and Energy has acted in such a way that the Ceylon Electricity Board is becoming obsolete.
අද වෙනකොට ඔබතුමාගේ අලුත් අනපනත් අනුව අහෝසි වෙන තැනට නැත්තම් පෞද්ගලිකකරණයට යොමු කරන තැනට යොමු වෙමින් තිබෙනවා. 2022 පනත සංශෝධනය කරන වෙලාවේ
When the electricity bill was being amended in 2022, the opposition claimed that the amendments will result in the electricity board being effectively sold off. Has that been the case? I challenge Govinda Kumaratunga to present at least one example of a project being integrated to the power grid without the relevant procurement process being followed.
Why is the door left open for future government to exploit this loophole? Please amend the electricity bill in such a way that the tender calling procedure has to be followed for projects between 10 and 100 megawatts and parliamentary approval has to be sought for projects over 100 megawatts.
As you can see, he does not have any evidence to say that proper procedures have not been followed in relation to any renewable energy project. I want to make it clear that no one can procure electricity without following the correct procurement process.
The Court of Appeal today dismissed a petition filed by Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, seeking to suspend an interim injunction that prevented him from functioning as acting chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. The injunction was issued by the Colombo District Court on the basis that Dr. Vijayadasa also held membership of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. It was issued after considering a complaint filed by SLFP's Senior Vice Chairman Mahinda Amaravira, Treasurer of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party Lasantha Alagiyawanna and SLFP's National Organizer, Member of Parliament Duminda Disanayaka. The injunction preventing Vijayadasa Rajapaksa from functioning as SLFP's acting chairman will remain effective until tomorrow, the 8th of May. Independent parliamentarian Dylan Pereira points out to the opposition that they must be aware that government will have no standing during an upcoming presidential election if factions within the opposition move to unite. Meanwhile, independent parliamentarian Chandima Veerakkodi confirmed that the SJB will not join forces with President Ranil Wickremesinghe or the Rajapaksas during the upcoming presidential election. With that, let's take a look at developments in the political space today. Welcome back. We take you to your business news. During a two-day official visit to Sri Lanka, Vice President of the International Finance Corporation for the Asia-Pacific region, Ricardo Pulti, emphasized the corporation's commitment towards supporting Sri Lanka's ongoing reforms and growth agenda. The IFC official during his visit to Sri Lanka met with several Sri Lankan authorities, including President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe. The IFC official highlighted the importance of maintaining the momentum in implementing key measures to support the transition from economic stabilization to sustainable growth. He further went on to say that Sri Lanka can unlock its full economic potential through embracing necessary reforms, fostering a conducive business environment, and prioritizing sustainable inclusive growth. The Colombo Bourse experienced a day of volatile activity with mixed sentiment and uncertainty overall. The benchmark ASPI closed at 12,376, remaining unchanged from the previous day. Stocks reflected the volatile environment of the market, to which the most significant contributors were Commercial Bank, LOLC and CTC, and LOLC led the way. In contrast, HNB, Sampath and JKH were the dominant negative contributors to the ASPI, further reflecting mixed sentiment in the banking sector. Investor sentiment remained diverse, displaying interest in a variety of sectors, notably in blue-chip firms and the manufacturing and apparel sectors. During today's trading session, turnover saw a decline from the previous day, reflecting unpredictable market activity at 2 billion rupees, with 5% decrease from the previous day, where the capital goods sector led turnover at 26%, followed by the food, beverage and tobacco and banking sectors jointly contributing to 82% or rather 32% of overall turnover. There was a net foreign outflow of 44.9 billion rupees, signaling interest in outward investments. The market overall saw a day of diversified and uncertain investor sentiment led by the banking and capital goods sectors. And the Sri Lankan rupee opened weaker today at 299.50 to 350 against the greenback. Let's take a look at the exchange rates for the day. In your corporate news segment, Citrus Leisure PLC announced changes to the directorate of the company. Meanwhile, Emirates revealed that Colombo is set to be one of the first set of destinations to be served by an A350 aircraft joining the Emirates fleet this September. With that, let's take a look at today's corporate news in brief.
Citrus Leisure PLC disclosed that Suresh Demel has been appointed as an independent non-executive director to the company with effect from the 3rd of May. Demel held 100,000 shares issued by the company as at the date of his appointment. Meanwhile, PLP Vitana was also appointed as an independent non-executive director to Citrus Leisure PLC with effect from the 3rd of May 2024. The company also announced that the board of subcommittees were reconstituted with effect from the 3rd of May following changes made to the directorate of the company. UAE flag carrier Emirates yesterday announced that Colombo will be among the first set of destinations to be served by Emirates A350 aircraft entering service in September this year. Emirates' fourth daily service to Colombo EK654 and EK655 will be served by the A350 aircraft from the 1st of January 2025, with 10 new A350 aircrafts expected to join the Emirates fleet by the 31st of March 2025. The airline plans to deploy its latest aircraft type to 9 destinations in the coming months. In other corporate news, SoftLogic Holdings PLC announced the appointment of Thirukumar Nadarasa as an independent non-executive director of the company with effect from the 1st of May 2024. In its corporate disclosure dated 3rd of May, the company says Thirukumar has no relevant interest in shares issued by the company as of the effective date.
Well, that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9 here on Ada Derana 24. We'll see you again tomorrow with the very latest. I'm Indiveri Amuatha. Good night.